I never thought my life would unravel in front of my entire family. Not in whispers, not in secret, but in the middle of a dinner table, where the laughter stopped and every pair of eyes turned toward me. Before I tell you what happened, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one. My name is Eleanor Parker. I'm 62 years old. For most of my life, I was a librarian. Quiet, organized. Someone who believed in the value of words and the dignity of family. I gave my son, Daniel, everything I could. Every meal cooked from scratch. Every shirt washed and folded. Every late-night hour spent helping him study. When his father, my husband of 37 years, passed away, Daniel was all I had left. So when he married Melissa, I tried my best. She was younger, ambitious, full of opinions. At first, I thought she would bring light into his life. But soon, I began to notice her eyes. Cold, measuring. As if every time she looked at me, she was calculating how much space I took up. Still, I stayed silent. Because that's what mothers do. We endure. The night of my 62nd birthday should have been different. It should have been warm. Laughter, candles, family. Instead, it became the night my world cracked open. The dining room was crowded with relatives, Daniel's cousins, Melissa's friends, even some neighbors. The table was full of food. I had baked my favorite lemon cake earlier that day, hoping to share a piece of myself with the people I loved. Melissa sat across from me, swirling her wine glass. She leaned toward her friend, but her voice carried clear across the table. Honestly, she said with a smirk, having Eleanor around is like keeping old furniture. She just sits there, taking up space. The room went silent. The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Every head turned toward me. Old furniture. That's what I was to her. I looked at Daniel, my son, the boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose tears I had wiped away, whose future I had built with my own 2 hands. Surely, he would defend me. Surely, he would stand up and say, "Melissa, that's enough." But Daniel only lowered his eyes. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He let her words hang in the air like smoke, choking my lungs. And in that silence, I realized something worse than Melissa's insult. My son had chosen her silence over my dignity. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and say, "How dare you? How dare you erase everything I've given?" But my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I sat there, frozen, cheeks burning. The laughter resumed, but it was nervous, forced. No one looked me in the eyes. No one came to my defense. And in that moment, surrounded by people I had called family, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. After dinner, I slipped away quietly. No one noticed. Not Daniel, not Melissa, not even the relatives I had hosted for years. I went to my room and closed the door. The walls felt smaller, pressing in on me. I opened my dresser drawer and pulled out a photo of my late husband. "Robert," I whispered, "if you were here, this wouldn't be happening. They wouldn't treat me like this." Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to sob. I sat in the dark, my back straight, hands folded in my lap. If I cried, Melissa would win, and I couldn't give her that. That night, as the laughter and music continued downstairs, I packed a small bag. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I knew Melissa's insult was only the beginning. If Daniel wouldn't defend me now, he never would. Old furniture. That word echoed in my head until the dawn crept through the curtains. I thought of the bookshelf I had once donated to the library, sturdy, polished, but eventually discarded for something newer. Was that me now? Discarded? Replaced? The next morning, Melissa knocked on my door with a fake smile plastered on her face. "Eleanor, I think it's time you considered alternatives," she said sweetly. "Maybe a smaller place. Or a retirement home. Somewhere you'd be more comfortable." Comfortable. That's what she called it. I wanted to laugh, but all I did was nod. Because what power did I have left? I was invisible in my own son's house. That was the day I realized something painful. Melissa didn't just see me as old furniture. Daniel did too. Because silence is agreement, and his silence spoke louder than any insult. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, suitcase half zipped, staring at the lemon cake still sitting on the counter downstairs. No one had touched it. No one cared. And I told myself, this is not the end of my story. This is the beginning. The morning after my birthday, the house was quiet. But not the kind of quiet that comforts you. It was the kind of quiet that screams at you, reminding you that you don't belong. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping cold tea. The lemon cake still sat on the counter, untouched, the frosting sagging. No one wanted it. No one wanted me. Melissa walked in, her heels clicking across the floor. Her perfume filled the room before her voice did. "Eleanor," she said lightly, as if she were offering me advice instead of delivering a sentence. "Daniel and I were talking last night. We think maybe it's time you considered other options." I set my cup down carefully. "Other options?" She smiled, but it wasn't kindness. It was victory. Like a retirement community, somewhere with people your age. A place where you'd be more comfortable. Comfortable. There was that word again. Every insult she gave me came dressed in silk. Daniel came in next. My son. My flesh and blood. He didn't meet my eyes. "Mom," he said quietly, "Melissa just wants what's best for everyone. You'd have more independence. We'd have more space." Space. Independence. Pretty words. But all I heard was, "Get out." I looked at him, waiting for him to realize what he was saying, waiting for him to remember every sacrifice I had made for him. But he didn't. His silence was agreement, and it cut deeper than Melissa's words ever could. That night, I packed. Not because I wanted to, but because I was being erased. 2 suitcases. That's all my life seemed to be worth. I folded my clothes in silence. Every sweater smelled faintly of lavender. Every shirt carried a memory. And still, I put them away, as if each fold was a goodbye. When I wheeled the bags to the front door, Melissa stood in the hallway, arms crossed. Her smirk was small, but it was there, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Daniel carried 1 suitcase for me, but he didn't say a word. No apology. No resistance. Just silence. The silence of betrayal. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind of place with flickering neon signs and a front desk clerk who didn't bother to ask questions. The room smelled of bleach and stale air. The bed sagged in the middle. The heater rattled every few minutes. I sat on the bed and stared at the peeling wallpaper. My son's house, my house was warm and filled with people. And I was here, in a room no one cared about, in a place no one wanted to stay. Old furniture. That phrase wouldn't leave me. It echoed against the motel walls, louder than the TV, louder than the cars rushing by outside. For the first week, I tried to keep myself busy. I applied for part-time jobs at local shops. No one called me back. Too old, too slow, too invisible. I walked to the diner down the road, ordered black coffee, and sat by the window, watching families, watching mothers laughing with their children, watching what I no longer had. At night, I sent Daniel a massage. "I hope you're eating well. I miss you. Can we talk?" His replies were short, delayed. "Melissa's been stressed. We're busy right now. Maybe later. Maybe later." Those 2 words hurt worse than silence, because they dangled hope in front of me, only to snatch it away. On the 10th night, I couldn't sleep. The motel heater clanged like pots and pans. I turned off the light and lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. That's when it hit me. Melissa had won, not because she was right, but because I had given her the power of silence. I had let her words brand me like truth. Old furniture. But I wasn't furniture. I was the foundation. The one who built the house brick by brick, memory by memory. I sat up in bed, pulled out my old leather bag, and began sorting through papers. Bank slips, insurance forms, a stack of unopened envelopes I had carried with me since Robert died. That's when I saw it. A faded manila folder, the corner bent from years of being shoved aside. The deed. The house deed. Still in my name. My hands trembled as I held it up to the lamp. Robert's signature. My signature. No mention of Daniel. No mention of Melissa. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally remembered who I was. Melissa had called me old furniture. But old furniture doesn't own the house it sits in. Foundation do. Mothers do. I did. That night, I slept. Truly slept. Not because the motel bed was comfortable, but because I had found something more powerful than comfort. I had found the truth, and the truth was about to change everything. The morning after I found the deed, I woke up different. The motel bed was still lumpy. The heater still rattled. The wallpaper still peeled. But inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't powerless anymore. I wasn't old furniture. I was the owner of the very house Melissa thought she ruled. Still, a piece of paper isn't enough. Not in this world. I needed proof. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't dreaming. I took the bus downtown, clutching the folder like it was treasure. The law office was small, tucked between a pawn shop and a florist. A gold plaque on the door read, Howard and Green, Attorneys at Law. Inside, the receptionist looked at me like I was another tired grandmother wasting her time. But when I slid the deed across the counter, her eyes widened. "One moment, ma'am. I'll get Mr. Green." Mr. Green was younger than I expected, mid-40s, sharp suit, eyes that missed nothing. He skimmed the papers, flipping through each page with precision. When he looked up, there was no doubt in his voice. "Mrs. Parker, this property is still in your name. You are the sole legal owner. Your late husband left it to you outright. Your son has no claim. His wife certainly doesn't." My breath caught. "So, they can't sell it? They can't mortgage it?" He shook his head. "Not without your consent. And if they've tried, that could be fraud." Fraud. The word hung heavy in the air. Melissa's smug smile flashed in my mind. Her whispered poison at the dinner table. Her plans for more space. She wasn't just cruel. She was dangerous. I walked out of that office taller than I had in months. The city noise swirled around me, but inside, I felt calm. For the first time since Robert died, I wasn't drifting. I had an anchor, and I had a choice. That night in the motel, I sat at the desk with the lamp casting a yellow glow. I opened my journal. For weeks, the pages had been empty. They called me old furniture. But I am the foundation. I will not be discarded. This is my house, my life, my story. I underlined it twice. It wasn't just ink. It was a promise. But promises don't erase a pain. The silence still followed me. The unanswered texts. The nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how my son could choose her over me. I dialed his number again. It rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. "Hi, it's Mom," I whispered. I just wanted to hear your voice, to know you're okay." My voice cracked. "Call me back, please." He didn't. Days turned into a week. I saw Melissa once at the grocery store. Her cart piled high with expensive wine and imported cheese. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and chose not to. I stood 2 aisles over, clutching a loaf of bread, watching her laugh into her phone. She had no idea. No idea that the woman she dismissed as old furniture was holding the very foundation of her life in her hands. And I decided then, I wouldn't tell her. Not yet. Let her build her fantasies. Let her believe the house was hers to command. The higher she climbed, the harder the fall. Back at the motel, I began to plan. Quietly. Methodically. Step 1. Secure the papers. I bought a small lockbox and stored the deed, my will, and my savings documents inside. No more leaving them in flimsy folders. No more treating my life like clutter. Step 2. Research. I spent hours at the public library, my old workplace. The smell of books wrapped around me like an old blanket. I studied property laws, landlord rights, tenant protections. Every paragraph was a brick in the wall I was building around myself. Step 3. Patience. I knew Melissa. She was ambitious, greedy. She wouldn't be content with just living in that house. Sooner or later, she'd push for more control, ownership, money. And when she did, I'd be ready. But even as I plotted, loneliness gnawed at me. The motel walls pressed closer each night. I ate dinners alone, staring at the muted television. I missed the sound of Daniel's laughter, the warmth of family dinners, even the chaos of holidays. I wasn't made of stone. I was a mother, and mothers ache for their children, even when their children betray them. One evening, I wrote Daniel another message. "I love you. No matter what she says about me, that won't change. But silence is a choice, Daniel, and you've chosen it." I didn't send it. I closed my phone and placed it face down on the nightstand. Some words aren't meant to be sent. Some are meant to be remembered. Then, late one Friday night, the motel phone rang. A rare sound I barely remembered it could ring at all. I picked it up, my hand trembling. "Mom?" Daniel's voice. Small, hesitant. "Daniel." My throat tightened. Is everything all right? A pause. Then, Melissa and we've been talking to the bank. We're thinking of refinancing the house. I just need you to sign some paperwork, that's all. Paperwork. There it was. The plan I had been waiting for. Of course, I said softly, though my chest burned with fire. Why don't we meet next week? I'd be happy to take a look. After I hung up, I stared at the ceiling. This was it. The moment Melissa would push too far. The moment Daniel's silence would no longer protect him. I closed my journal and whispered to the empty room. They think I'm old furniture. But next week, they'll see who really owns the floor beneath their feet. The following Tuesday, I stood outside Daniel's house. My house. The brick walls glowed in the afternoon sun. The rose bushes I planted years ago blooming wildly along the porch. It looked the same as always, but everything had changed. Melissa opened the door. Her smile was thin, stretched tight like plastic wrap. "Eleanor," she said, as if my name tasted sour in her mouth. "Come in, we've been waiting." The dining table was covered in papers. Bank forms, contracts, pens lined neatly on a silver tray. Melissa gestured like a hostess presenting a feast. "Just a few signatures," she said brightly. "Routine paperwork. Once this is done, Daniel and I can finally move forward with our plans." Her voice dripped with sugar, but her eyes were sharp. This wasn't routine. This was an ambush. I sat down slowly, setting my purse on the chair beside me. Daniel avoided my eyes. His hands fidgeted, shuffling the pages, flipping them back and forth without purpose. "Mom," he murmured, "this is just refinancing. It'll help us pay for the new business. Melissa's idea, it could really work." Melissa leaned closer. "Exactly. It's an investment in the future, and all it takes is your signature." I looked at the line where my name was supposed to go. Blank. Waiting. For a moment, I let the silence stretch. I wanted them to feel it, the weight of my pause, the power of my decision. Then I smiled, just enough to unnerve her. "Melissa," I said gently, "do you know what Robert used to tell me about contracts?" She blinked. "What?" "Never sign anything you don't fully understand, especially when it involves a house." I slid the papers back across the table. "I'll take these to my lawyer. If everything checks out, I'll consider it." The color drained from Melissa's face. "A lawyer? Eleanor, that's not necessary. It's just paperwork." I raised a hand. "Everything involving property is necessary." Her voice sharpened. "You don't trust us?" Finally, I met her eyes. Calm, steady. "No, Melissa, I don't." Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his cheeks flushed. "Mom, please, you're making this harder than it has to be." I turned to him. "Harder for who, Daniel? For me? Or for the woman who called me old furniture in front of my family?" His mouth opened, then closed. No defense. No denial. The silence was my answer. I gathered the papers into my purse and stood. Melissa's voice cracked like a whip. "You can't just walk out with those." "Yes," I said, my tone cool. "I can, because this house is mine, and you'd know that if you'd read the deed." Her jaw tightened. For the first time, she looked uncertain, afraid. I left without another word. The air outside was crisp, sharp with the scent of roses. Each step I took down the walkway felt like reclaiming ground that had been stolen from me. Back at the motel, I spread the papers across the bed. I read every line, every clause, every trick hidden in the fine print. Melissa hadn't just wanted refinancing. She had slipped in a transfer of rights, giving Daniel equal ownership of the house. And by extension, her. She wasn't trying to build a business. She was trying to steal my home. The next morning, I called Mr. Green, the lawyer. When I showed him the documents, his eyes darkened. "This is coercion at best, fraud at worst. If you had signed, you would have lost control of the property." I nodded slowly. So it was true. Melissa wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. "Keep every document," Mr. Green said firmly. "And Mrs. Parker, don't confront her yet. Let her believe she still has the upper hand. That's when she'll make mistakes." So I waited. Days passed. Melissa called, her tone sugary sweet, pretending concern. "Eleanor, have you had time to review the papers? We really need your support." Each time, I answered calmly, "I'm still reviewing." Inside, I was smiling, because for the first time, she needed me. Her future hung on my decision. And she didn't even realize I already held all the power. At night, I wrote in my journal again. They wanted me gone, but I am still here. They wanted to erase me, but I hold the pen. Soon, the truth will not just be mine, it will be everyone's. I underlined the last sentence twice. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was justice. And justice, I had learned, doesn't need to scream. It waits. It watches, and then it strikes. One evening, I saw Melissa again at the market. She was laughing with a friend, bragging, "Oh, once the house is refinanced, Daniel and I will finally have real money. Eleanor won't be a problem anymore." She said it so loudly, people turned their heads. Her confidence was intoxicating to her, and deadly, because the higher she climbed on her fantasy, the harder she would fall when the truth came crashing down. That night, I closed the motel curtains and whispered to the empty room. They think I'm powerless, but in 2 weeks, they'll know the truth. And when they do, they won't just see who owns the house, they'll see who owns the silence. The papers sat in my lockbox, guarded like treasure. Every night, I would open it, touch the crisp edges, and remind myself, this house is mine. It always has been. But proof alone wouldn't be enough. Melissa was clever. She'd find another angle, another scheme. And if Daniel kept letting her pull the strings, he would follow wherever she led. So I needed more than papers. I needed protection. I needed a plan. I returned to Mr. Green's office, my lockbox tucked under my arm. He glanced at the documents again, then looked at me with respect this time. "Mrs. Parker, you've done well keeping everything safe. But if you want to make sure they can't touch your property, I recommend forming a trust or an LLC. It would give you legal distance and make it almost impossible for anyone else to challenge your ownership." His words settled in my chest like armor. An LLC. A shield. "Do it," I said firmly. For the first time, his eyebrows lifted. The quiet librarian he thought he'd met had steel in her voice now. The paperwork took days, but each signature I scrawled felt like stitching myself back together. Every document filed, every stamp applied, it was another brick in the fortress I was building around my life. Melissa had her smirks. Daniel had his silence. But I had the law, and I was finally learning how to wield it. Back at the motel, I studied. Stacks of library books covered the small table: property law, estate planning, investment basics. The clerk at the desk teased me, calling me Professor Parker. But I didn't mind. Knowledge was power, and I was starving for it. The more I read, the stronger I felt. Melissa's insults echoed less in my head. In their place grew new words: ownership, leverage, control. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing. And Melissa, meanwhile, was blind in her arrogance. I heard it from neighbors who still remembered me kindly. She bragged about remodeling her house. She told friends about the business she would start once the refinancing went through. She even threw a small party, standing at the head of the table like a queen, telling everyone the future was hers. But queens need crowns. And hers was made of paper lies. The truth would crush it. One evening, I decided to walk past the house. It was late, almost dusk, the street lamps just beginning to glow. From the sidewalk, I could see the warm light spilling through the windows, hear the faint hum of laughter. My laughter. The laughter I used to fill those walls with. Through the curtains, I saw Melissa pouring wine for her guests. She raised her glass high. "To new beginnings," she declared. I stood there, hidden in the shadows, my fists clenched. She toasted her future in a house that was mine. And yet, instead of anger, I felt something sharper. Resolve. I whispered into the night. "Toast while you can. Your ending has already begun." Back in the motel, I began to change. I bought new clothes, nothing extravagant, just sharper lines, cleaner colors. I got my hair cut, styled so it framed my face with quiet dignity. When I walked past the mirror, I no longer saw a discarded widow. I saw someone becoming unrecognizable to the woman Melissa had mocked. I carried myself differently, shoulders squared, chin lifted. Even the motel clerk noticed. "You're glowing, Miss Parker," he said one morning. I smiled. It wasn't glow. It was power. Still, loneliness lingered. At night, I thought of Daniel, the little boy who once held my hand crossing the street, who used to beg me to read one more bedtime story. Now, that boy was gone, replaced by a man whose silence betrayed me at every turn. One night, I wrote him a letter. Daniel, you think silence makes you innocent. It doesn't. It makes you complicit. Melissa may have spoken the words, but you gave them power by staying quiet. One day, you'll have to choose between her lies and my truth. And when that day comes, I hope you remember who built your foundation. I sealed the letter, but I didn't send it. Not yet. Melissa grew bolder as days passed. I overheard her on the phone once, her voice carrying across the parking lot as she bragged to a friend. She'll sign, trust me. She's weak. She always caves. I pressed my back to the brick wall, hidden from view, my lips curling into a bitter smile. Weak? Maybe once. But not anymore. Every insult she threw at me only built my strength. Every scheme she plotted only tightened the noose around her own neck. 2 weeks after our last meeting, Melissa called again. Her voice was sharper this time, tinged with desperation. Eleanor, we really need you to sign those papers. The bank's deadline is coming up. Don't you want to help your son? I let her words hang in the air, then answered softly. I'll think about it. The silence that followed told me everything. She was panicking. She needed me. And she hated it. That night, I stood by the motel window, staring at the darkened sky. The stars glittered like fragments of hope. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. By myself. They called me old furniture, I whispered to the glass. But old furniture doesn't fight back. I do. And soon, everyone will see who this house truly belongs to. The calls started coming almost every day. At first, they were polite. Eleanor, have you had time to review the papers? Then they became sharp. Eleanor, you're holding us back. We can't move forward without you. And finally, they turned desperate. You're being selfish. Daniel is your son. Don't you care about his future? I listened, calm and steady, letting Melissa's voice rise and fall like waves crashing against rocks. And I answered the same way each time. I'll think about it. But inside that house, my house, the pressure was cracking the walls. Neighbors began to whisper. The shouting carried through the thin plaster. Melissa's voice, shrill and angry. Daniel's voice, low and defeated. One neighbor called me. Eleanor, are you all right? Things sound bad over there. I smiled faintly into the phone. Yes, I said. I'm all right. For once, I truly am. Melissa tried every tactic. She left voicemails dripping with false sweetness. She sent Daniel to guilt me. She even knocked on my motel door once, her smile painted on, her hands clutching a gift basket. Eleanor, she cooed. We've gotten off on the wrong foot. I know I can be blunt sometimes, but this is about family. Please, don't let pride get in the way. I took the basket, set it on the table, and closed the door in her face without a word. Later, I threw it away. Even the fruit tasted rotten with her lies. Daniel came the next night. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes, his tie crooked like he hadn't cared to fix it. Mom, he said softly, why are you making this so hard? Melissa's under a lot of stress. She just wants what's best for us. I looked at him. Really looked. The boy I had raised was still there, buried under layers of silence and fear. But he was drowning, and he didn't even know it. Daniel, I said gently, what do you want? Not what she wants, not what I want, you. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. And that silence told me everything. Meanwhile, Melissa was unraveling. She stormed into the bank one afternoon, demanding to know why the refinancing hadn't gone through. The manager called me afterward. Mrs. Parker, she's becoming aggressive. She claimed she owned the property. When we told her she wasn't on the deed, she nearly lost control. I thanked him calmly. Inside, I savored every word. The trap was tightening, and she didn't even see it. At night, I wrote again in my journal. Melissa thrives on control. Take it away, and she withers. Her anger is proof of her weakness. Daniel's silence is proof of his fear. But my silence is power. Soon, it will be time to break it. Then came the night Melissa truly cracked. I was walking past the house, hidden in the shadows. Through the open window, I heard her voice, shrill and venomous. She's ruining everything, Daniel. That old woman is destroying our future. If she won't sign, then we'll find another way. I don't care if we have to push her into a home and lock the doors. She's not taking this from me. My heart pounded. But not with fear. With clarity. With fire. Because she didn't know the truth. She couldn't take anything from me. It was already mine. The next morning, Melissa came to the motel again. Her eyes were wild, her hair unkempt. She slammed her fist on the table. You think you're clever, Eleanor? You think holding those papers makes you powerful? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. And when this is over, you'll be gone, just like you should have been years ago. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I simply stood, met her gaze, and said, "This is my house, Melissa. It always has been. And soon, everyone will know it." Her face blanched, then flushed with rage. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I called Mr. Green that afternoon. "It's time," I told him. "I want everything ready for a public reveal. No more secrets." He agreed. We set the date, a community meeting with the tenants, the neighbors, and my family. Every witness in one room. This wouldn't just be about legal proof. It would be about truth. About stripping Melissa of the power she thought she had. The days leading up to the meeting felt electric. Melissa doubled down on her arrogance. She told neighbors she'd soon be the sole lady of the house. She ordered new furniture, bragging it was for the remodeled living room. She even hinted about hosting a grand holiday party once the house is ours. Every word she spoke was another nail in her own coffin. And Daniel? He shrank further into silence. But there was something in his eyes now. A flicker of doubt. A whisper of guilt. He knew, deep down, that the ground beneath his feet was shifting. And soon, it would collapse. The night before the meeting, I sat in my motel room, the papers spread out in neat piles. The deed, the trust documents, the bank reports. I placed them in a leather folder, closed it, and laid it gently on the bed. Then I stood at the mirror. For the first time in months, I didn't see grief. I didn't see a burden. I didn't see old furniture. I saw a woman who had been tested, stripped, and humiliated, but had risen stronger than anyone expected. I whispered to my reflection. Tomorrow the silence breaks. The day of the meeting arrived. The community center was nothing fancy. Fluorescent lights, metal folding chairs, a long table at the front. But to me, it was a courtroom, a stage. The place where the truth would finally speak louder than Melissa's lies. Neighbors shuffled in, whispering, curious why they had been summoned. Daniel sat stiffly near the front, his tie too tight, his face pale. And then Melissa entered. She walked in like a queen, chin high, heels striking the floor with confidence she hadn't earned. Her eyes swept the room until they landed on me. Her lips curled. She thought she had already won. The meeting began with small talk, property updates, community notices. But Melissa couldn't wait. She rose abruptly, her voice slicing through the chatter. "Before we waste more time, I want answers. Who's really been blocking the refinancing? Who thinks they can play games with my house?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Neighbors glanced at one another. "My house," she had said. Her arrogance was on full display. I stood slowly, my leather folder in hand. "Melissa," I said evenly, "you've been asking the wrong question. The real question is, whose house is it?" Her smirk deepened. "Don't play coy, Eleanor. We all know you've been difficult. You should be grateful we've let you stay as long as we have." Laughter flickered through the room, nervous, unsure. All eyes turned to me. I opened the folder. The papers slid neatly onto the table, each one stamped, notarized, undeniable. "This house," I said, my voice steady, "has never belonged to you. It has never belonged to Daniel. It has always belonged to me." The silence was heavy. Then, like glass shattering, Melissa's laugh rang out. "You expect anyone to believe this? You're a bitter old woman clinging to scraps. That house is mine. Everyone knows it." But the papers spoke louder than her voice. Deed, trust, bank records, each page bearing my name. Not hers, not Daniel's, mine. Mr. Green, seated quietly in the back, nodded once. Confirmation. Melissa lunged forward, snatching at the documents, her voice shrill. "This is fake. She forged it. She's trying to ruin us." I pulled the folder back, unshaken. "These are certified records, filed with the county, verified by law. There is nothing fake about them." The neighbors murmured, heads nodding, eyes narrowing at Melissa. Her mask was cracking, and everyone could see it. I turned to Daniel. "Son," I said softly, though the entire room could hear, You've stayed silent for too long. Silence may feel safe, but it is not neutral. It's a choice. And every time she insulted me, you chose her silence over my dignity." His face flushed, his hands trembling in his lap. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "But, Melissa Karin, don't listen to her, Daniel. She's manipulating you. She's always been weak. She's nothing but old furniture collecting dust." Something shifted then. I saw it in Daniel's eyes, the flicker of guilt becoming fire. He stood, his voice louder than I had heard in years. "Stop, Melissa." The room froze. Melissa spun on him, disbelief etched across her face. "What did you say?" I said stop, he repeated, stronger now. "Mom's right. It was her house. It always was. And I let you talk about her like she was nothing. I let you push her out, but not anymore." Melissa's mouth fell open. She looked around the room, searching for allies. But all she saw were neighbors shaking their heads, arms crossed. Her power was gone. Her audience had turned. "You're pathetic," she spat at Daniel. "You're both pathetic. You think anyone cares about your little papers? About your stupid house? You'll regret this." Her voice rose to a scream, but the words no longer mattered. The room had already judged her, and she had lost. I gathered the papers calmly, sliding them back into the folder. Then, I looked at Melissa one last time. "You called me old furniture," I said quietly, "but old furniture doesn't own the floor you stand on. Old furniture doesn't write your future. Old furniture doesn't walk into a room and end you with the truth." Her face flushed crimson, her fists clenched. But she said nothing. There was nothing left to say. I turned to the room, my shoulders squared. This meeting is over. The house is mine. The decision is final. I walked past Melissa as if she were air, Daniel trailing behind me, his voice soft but certain. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered. "For all of it." I didn't answer. Not yet. Apologies could wait. For now, silence was enough. Outside, the evening air was cool, the sky streaked with fading gold. I stood on the steps of the community center, folder in hand, the weight of months of humiliation finally lifted. Inside that room, I had ended Melissa's reign, but more importantly, I had ended my own silence. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't discarded. I wasn't old furniture. I was Eleanor Parker, and I had reclaimed my name, my house, my dignity. After the meeting, Melissa's fury lingered like smoke after a fire. She shouted in the parking lot, her voice echoing into the night. "She's lying. She's manipulating all of you. You'll see, I'll fight this." But no one listened. Neighbors turned their backs. Daniel walked away from her, shoulders slumped, shame written across his face. And me? I simply stood still, the folder pressed against my chest, calm as stone. The days that followed stripped Melissa of the little power she had left. The bank refused her calls. The refinancing collapsed. Her so-called friends stopped answering. The neighbors who once tolerated her gossip now avoided her glare. Every empire built on arrogance eventually falls. Hers crumbled in silence. Daniel came to see me 2 nights later. He knocked softly on the motel door, as if afraid I wouldn't open it. When I did, he looked like the boy I used to know, lost, uncertain, searching for forgiveness. "Mom," he whispered, "I don't even know where to start." I let him in. We sat at the small table, the hum of the heater filling the silence between us. "I should have defended you that night at dinner," he said, voice breaking. "I should have told her to stop. I thought keeping peace meant staying quiet. But I see now. Silence is just another kind of betrayal." Tears pricked my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Instead, I reached across the table, taking his trembling hand in mine. "You were my son when you were silent," I said softly. "And you're my son now that you've spoken, but you'll have to live with the choices you made, just like I had to live with mine." He nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. And in that moment, I knew the wall between us had cracked. It wouldn't vanish overnight, but at least we could begin again. As for Melissa, her final act was predictable. She tried to strike back. She threatened to sue. She claimed fraud, coercion, manipulation. But Mr. Green and the documents were ironclad. Every claim she made dissolved under the weight of the truth. Eventually, even Daniel stopped returning her calls. The last I heard, she packed her bags in anger, storming out of town in the middle of the night. No goodbye, no audience, just the sound of her tires screeching down the road. And that was her punishment. Not just losing the house, but losing the illusion that she had ever truly belonged in it. When the dust settled, I moved back into the house. The roses by the porch still bloomed, their petals bright against the morning Sunday. I touched each one as I walked inside, whispering, "I'm home." But it wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof. Proof that I had survived betrayal. Proof that I had claimed back what was mine. I didn't stop there. With Mr. Green's help, I revised my will, ensuring no one could ever erase my legacy again. I set aside part of my savings for women like me, mothers, widows, women discarded by those they loved most. Because I knew I wasn't alone. I knew there were others sitting in cheap motel rooms right now, wondering if they mattered. And I wanted them to know. They do. On Kie evenings, Daniel comes by. Sometimes we sit in the garden, sipping tea, the silence between us softer now, no longer heavy with regret. He doesn't mention Melissa. Neither do I. Some ghosts don't deserve resurrection. Instead, we talk about the future, about rebuilding trust, about dinners where laughter might one day return without bitterness. It will take time, but time is something I still have. And for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of it. Late one night, I sat at the same dining table where Melissa once humiliated me. The papers were gone. The room was mine again. I opened my journal and wrote one final line beneath weeks of entries. They called me old furniture, but I was the foundation. And foundations don't break, they endure. I closed the book and felt peace settle in my chest. Not victory, not vengeance, peace. If you're listening to my story right now, maybe you felt invisible too. Maybe someone told you that you were nothing more than a burden. Maybe your silence has been mistaken for weakness. But hear me clearly, silence is not weakness. Silence is power, if you choose when to break it. And when you do, the world will finally hear you. Because I did. And I stand here, whole again, to tell you, you are not old furniture. You are not replaceable. You are the foundation. If this story spoke to you, tell me in the comments. Have you ever been treated like you didn't matter, only to prove your worth in the end? And where are you watching from today? Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story of strength, justice, and family secrets revealed. And please, share this video with someone who needs a reminder. You are not invisible. You are the foundation.